Hey y'all, what's going on? Since I'm going to be installing aftermarket speakers in the doors, I'm going to show you real quick how I went about making templates so I can make custom brackets so that everything just kind of bolts right back into place. It's not too terribly difficult. I mean, I guess it could be if you don't have a whole lot of tools to access, but bottom line, you could do it with probably a jigsaw and a whole lot of sanding if you want them, to come out like super perfect. But I mean, they're going to be behind the door panel, so ultimately, if you're doing it yourself, who really cares, right? But you want it to look as nice as possible, though. I personally want my entire install to look like I am a slightly above mediocre professional installer. Does that make sense? Anyway, let's get to it and get to work. All right, first thing you're going to need, of course, is your stock speakers. It doesn't do much good if you don't have them. Next up, you're going to want to take just some scrap plywood if you've got it. I had a little scrap ply and some scrap melamine lying around, so it really doesn't matter what you use, but I wouldn't go anything smaller than, say, 3/8 of an inch if you want to make a good, sturdy template. Next, what you want to do, of course, just put your stock speaker on whatever scrap material you're deciding to use, and then just kind of rough trace around it. Then you're going to go and make a hole in the center of that, big enough for the magnet to fit through, and these two pins right here, the rear speakers have those pins as well. I guess it's just to kind of help line things up when you put them in the door, but not gonna need them. If all you have is a jigsaw handy to do this, then naturally, once you get the speaker all the way sitting flush, you actually want to go back and make a nice line around, and then go along with your jigsaw. I wouldn't go right on the line. I would leave maybe a tiny little bit of material there, just to play it safe. If you want to clean it up and you have like a Dremel or a rotary tool or something like that, you can certainly use that to clean up the edges. Going to do the same thing with the rear speakers, and then what you'll be left with are two nice little templates to get the outside profile of whatever it is you're going to be using as a medium. I also made myself a template for a 6.5 inch speaker. Now when I put this onto, what I ended up using was PVC board. I don't know, I think I mentioned it in one of my other videos. I got the PVC board from a sign shop. It's called Cast Off. If you go to any sign shop or place that makes stuff with acrylic, a lot of times they'll sell you cast off really cheap. A couple cents, maybe 10, 25 cents a pound in most cases. Sometimes they'll just give it to you. I know a guy that owns the sign shop, so he just gave it to me. But I'm using 1 inch PVC board for mine. If you decide you're going to use something like wood, or if you have leftover MDF, you definitely want to paint the MDF or the wood, because being there in your door panel, it's going to collect moisture and everything, and you certainly don't want it swelling up. But take your template, of course, trace it onto the material you're deciding to use, and then take your jigsaw and rough cut it. If you're using something like PVC, or if you decide you're going to use like acrylic or something like that, just be prepared to make at least 2 passes, because unless you have a specialty blade for things like PVC and acrylic, it just kind of melts it along the way, and you'll have to go back and make an additional pass or 2. Not that big a deal though, it'll clean up, especially if you have a router. If you don't have a flush trim router bit, I would highly suggest you get one, especially if you have a router table, or even if you just have a plain old router. Makes things so much nicer. Alrighty, now what you're going to do is take your template, put your template tape around it, and then you're going to affix it to your material. Make sure, of course, you set your bit depth, and when you squeeze down, make sure that you put a lot of pressure. You want a good solid hold between your material and your template. As you can see, once you're done, you have the exact profile. Once you get your center hole cut out, you'll have something like this. I'll be doing that here in just a bit, but take and give yourself a little test fit. Voila! Should screw in nicely, and you'll have plenty of clearance for the window when it rolls down all the way. Okay, once you've got the center hole and everything drilled out, you've got everything done, just come up and check your fitment. There's a little screw right here, and you're going to have to take like a Dremel tool or something and make a little divot to accommodate that. Then you want to take your Dremel, kind of go along and just route down to where you've got maybe 1/4 of an inch. That way when you put it up to mount the screws, everything will reach, unless you just want to go by, 1.5 inch screws. But in some cases that might be a little easier. I just took my Dremel, went right along and sanded it down. And there we have it. Finished product. 6.5 will fit in there real nice. There's enough clearance for the window to roll down. And all that's left is just to screw the speaker in. Well, hook it up as well. But then I'll get it all wired up and we'll be ready to go. Before you go for your final install, put a little speaker gasket tape around the edge of all of your brackets. It'll just help ensure a nice tight fit, and it'll kind of help keep any potential vibration down. Anyway, that's about it. Any quips, questions, comments, evasions, leave them below and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Till next video, peace out.